Hi, I'm Shan Wu with Under Color of Law, and we're going to do a quick hot take on this arrest of the Wisconsin judge. So, as you've all probably heard by now, a Milwaukee County Circuit judge was arrested by the FBI Friday and charged in federal court for allegedly helping an undocumented immigrant avoid arrest. The judge is Hannah Dugan, and there are two charges. One is for obstruction, and the second is for concealing the individual from arrest. She made an initial appearance in court and was released. Okay, this case is just a bunch of garbage. Okay, quite obviously it was made for show. Maybe it's made to distract from the economy tanking, Trump backpedaling on tariffs. But let's take a quick dive into the actual substance of the situation and compare it to something that happened before, because this is not the first time that Trump has arrested a state judge. So this is obviously an escalation in their war, but it's not really that much of an escalation. They finally had an opportunity to do something that Tom Homan had been promising to do, which is, if you're going to harbor people, we're going to come after you. So Kash Patel, the FBI director, made a statement, I think he posted this, where he was saying that we believe Judge Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse, allowing the subject to evade arrest. He later apparently deleted that tweet after he also had said something like, thankfully our agents chased down the perp on foot. He'd been in custody since then. Now, maybe Patel was exhibiting some common sense here in deleting that tweet, although damage is already done, as we'll discuss. It's perfectly ridiculous for the director of the FBI to be prejudging something this way, or maybe he deleted it not because he felt embarrassed about prejudging things publicly, but because when he says that the agents chased down the perp on foot, it's actually embarrassing because they actually rode down the elevator with the perp, apparently not realizing they were with him. That's the only reason they had to chase him on foot, because then he exited the courthouse, and I guess they've had to find him eventually. So who knows the real reasons behind Kash Patel deleting that. Now let's take a dive into the fact that these particular charges really don't hold water. And again, you're not going to see that in the mainstream media very much. They're just talking about, oh, big escalation. Are they going after judges now? This is really the Trump administration showing they mean business when it comes to pursuing their immigration policies. That's why it's really important that you support these independent views, folks like us who are doing the analysis, delivering the news, giving our opinion, without being beholden to any corporate interests, any corporate overlords who are trying to force the both sides now thing, mostly because they may be worried about the repercussions for them. So subscribe here, make us the #1 and only channel that's combining this intersection of law and politics, and help us in this venture. We're looking forward to going on this journey with you. Now, let's continue with this analysis here. So the 1505, 18 U.S.C. 1505 is the obstruction piece of it. And once upon a time, well, before we get to once upon a time, it requires an element of corrupt intent. So the person, the judge in this case, has to have corruptly somehow obstructed this proceeding. She has to know about it, has to corruptly obstruct it. Once upon a time, that term was considered unconstitutionally vague. In fact, a very famous case was reversed because of that, John Poindexter. Now, John Poindexter's case got reversed because they said that this whole notion of what he'd done, he was the Iran-Contra guy, that the term was just too vague for anyone to know what that meant. Now, if you think about what is going on here, you couldn't have a better example of something being vague than here, but they eventually amended that to make it a little bit more specific, to give courts guidance. But this case is ultimately utterly unfounded, as it just seems to be on the surface. And let's take a look at the fact that in 2018, Trump tried to do this to a Massachusetts state district court judge, Shelley Joseph. And Joseph and a court officer were accused of helping an undocumented migrant sneak out of the district court there, and that migrant was arrested later. Now, unlike what happened for Judge Dugan, in that case, they didn't make a big show of arresting the judge. Later, charges were going to be brought, and like most white-collar defendants, and this is a white-collar situation, that judge surrendered to the authorities, and federal prosecutors eventually dropped the charges, and instead, the judge agreed to be referred to the Massachusetts Commission on Judicial Conduct. That's a state agency charged with investigating allegations of misconduct among those admitted to the bench. Side note, the United States Supreme Court has no such concerns. Nobody gets to investigate them except themselves. All right, it was an aside. So actually, that commission did file some formal charges against the judge, saying that this was wrong and she, should not have done this. Now, in contrast, big public arrest for the judge, charges almost instantly filed by the afternoon as soon as Patel deleted his tweet, basically. But that earlier 2018 case also shows the limited extent of this kind of a theory. And not only that, the facts here seem, from the reporting, to be much, much weaker. Judge did not do any concealing here. What actually happened, in part based on the affidavit that the government gave, was agents had been told, you got to leave the courtroom. You can't come in here and arrest anybody. That's against the policy of the court. And then the judge let the migrant out the jury room door, which exits into the public hallway. This wasn't like some take the back stairs, go down to the garage and you're out of here. Simply exited not through the main courtroom doors, but through the jury room door, which goes right into the public hallway. That's not hiding anybody. And then apparently also that the person rode the elevator down with the agents. Don't know why they didn't arrest them then. Maybe they didn't realize who they were in the elevator with, and later did get arrested. And again, this is all in public. It's not hiding somebody anywhere. Now, remember that earlier case I talked about with the unconstitutional vagueness issue in the Poindexter? Well, here, let's put up the headline for you there, because it's important to know that the big headline there was that Poindexter and other Iran-Contra defendants had been immunized to testify, and the Court of Appeals held, D.C. Circuit, that their immunized testimony had tainted the evidence against them. They shouldn't have been able to be convicted using some of the evidence that they'd been immunized against. Within that, though, was also the point that the corrupt notion was unconstitutionally vague. Now here, there's a whole different kind of taint going on here, right? Because the FBI director and the Attorney General of the United States are tainting the entire case ahead of time. They're completely prejudging what has happened here. So take a listen for a moment to the Attorney General of the United States speaking.
What's happened to our judiciary is beyond me.
Yeah, so when the American public hears this and they think these were once upstanding people in their communities and their professions, and they put it all on the line for this, I mean, have you dug into their motive? Like, what inspired them to carry out these acts and harbor criminals?
They're deranged is all I can think of. I cannot believe. I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not. And we're sending a very strong message today. If you are harboring a fugitive, we don't care who you are. If you are helping hide one, if you are giving a TDA member guns, anyone who is illegally in this country, we will come after you and we will prosecute you. We will find you.
So what is the Attorney General of the United States talking about? She's calling the defendant deranged. Is she helping the judge raise an insanity defense, perhaps? Then she talks about if you're going to supply members of these gangs with guns, like what? What guns? Did the judge supply someone with guns? And I love the incongruence of her beginning her comments, shaking her head like an unhappy school teacher about their students, and then the next thing is, I think these people are deranged. This is obviously so out of line for the Attorney General of the United States to comment on an individual case and to make it plain that she has already made up her mind that the person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And she's absolutely unconcerned with utterly tainting a jury pool this way. There's a reason why people are very careful when they're prosecutors in not making statements like this. She could care less, because the only person she cares about pleasing is Donald Trump. So she's happy to get out there and say, this is the worst person ever, they're deranged, they're totally evil, call them any name you want, because she doesn't really care if the case actually goes forward. She doesn't really care if the evidence is tainted. She doesn't care if the outcome is tainted. She doesn't even care if it ever goes to trial and there's actually a conviction, which would then be reversed on appeal for all these taints and the incredibly weak evidence. All she cares about is image, making a splash, saying the right things so that Trump will be very happy with her. That's what it's always all about with these folks. So we'll keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on it with you. Thanks again for all the comments and replies. And it's good talking to you. Talk to you soon.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.